So, so first we'd like to thank everyone who contributed to this inquest, in particular the coroner, Mr. Horsted, for his incredible skill and in leading the inquest, and I think his focus on finding the lessons which will help other sufferers. Anorexia nervosa is not a good way to die. None of none of the people who've been following the inquest could properly imagine how much suffering Emma endured, and it's heartbreaking to imagine that others might suffer the same. We have to find ways to tackle this most vicious, deadly and destructive illness. This illness kills people like Emma. It breaks up their families, it alienates their siblings, it distances their friends, and it stretches the resources, the skills and the resilience of the medical teams who are trying to help. So I'm not going to comment on the specifics of the inquest. I need to get my head around it a little bit more. But it's not a simple story, this. Emma had an eating disorder from the age of 13, and she developed a challenging personality disorder around 18. This combination made it ever more difficult to help her. It's not as simple as blaming a particular professional or pinpointing a series of wrong decisions or the lack of a bed in a specialist unit. It's more complicated than that. However, there are, I think, some important things to ponder on as we reflect on the testimonies that have been given over the last few days. I think how Emma left an indelible impression on the people who were trying to help her. The smiles from Dr. Burton, his corridor question around "Are you behaving?", her late night conversations with Nurse Jenny and the team on U4, and her popping round to see Yako and Melanie on S3. I think they all saw the spark in Emma even when it was nearly extinguished. I think another thing to ponder on is what I call the unbearable catch-22, when we realised that she would die if we tried to treat her, and she'd die if we didn't. Care in the community and the constant battle to help. Emma engaged in the help that might have been there for her, and I think at the heart of this is the difficulty we have in investing resources into prevention and the recovery stages of the illness, which might actually reduce the pressure on the emergency care when Emma was in crisis. I think there's three things I would ask of you, the press and the people who are following these cases for now. I think we need more of your support for the professionals and in their what I think are their heroic efforts to find effective ways of treating this illness. Mental health care is an extremely hard area in which to work, and eating disorders is possibly the most difficult of those areas. The patients fight them, the gaps in resources, the parents blame them when things go wrong. So those who choose to work in this field, I think are courageous, they're dedicated, and I salute them and thank them for everything that they do. We need to encourage the best people to work in this field, to meet these challenges, and to realise that there's immense opportunity to make a difference. So the second thing I'd ask of you is to get behind the changes that we're starting to hear about that are being piloted in the east of England and were outlined by Dr. Jacco, Dr. Serfontein, and also the team at Adam Brooks. This is a vital part of Emma's legacy. We need to hold us and those involved to account for resourcing those changes and measuring the outcome so that we can extend the lessons. Some things have already changed since Emma's story unfolded, but we've got a very long way to go. Dr. Jacco outlined aspects of this plan, and it will need a lot of input to make it happen. We can make a difference here in the east of England, and that transformation can extend across the whole of the NHS. And I think this is the outcome that we would welcome most of all. It would give meaning to Emma's life and suffering. So I think the third thing I'd ask of you is for help in what I call building pathways out of this illness. So we can get a message to those who are suffering, as Emma did, that there is a bigger life beyond the illness. Help take this message to businesses, universities, colleges, entrepreneurs, because to get caught up in an eating disorder, you have to be exceptionally driven, intelligent, creative, and talented. Emma was sort of off the scale in this regard, and all the young people that I meet that have been caught up in this illness have very similar traits. So we need to find a way, as I say, a pathway out of the illness that helps them embrace that talent, reassures them that there is this bigger life. And in our case, Emma, she should be winning. She should be running her Olympic dream. She should be the barrister, not needing a barrister to defend her. She should be a doctor or a nurse. She had that level of talent, but she couldn't grasp that opportunity because her fear of recovery was just too great. So we've really got to help others like her with that talent to find that life, that bigger life beyond the illness, and we need your help in engaging people to do that. I think a final request of you is that you help more people understand this illness and to show compassion to those that are trapped in it. Emma battled a life-changing illness. She was at high risk of death for 14 years. She spent about half of that time in hospital. This was half of her entire life. If this had been cancer, she'd have had the whole world sympathising and supporting her, and she'd have been the centre of people's compassion. Instead, she was treated more like a heroin addict, and this has to change. We need investment, obviously, we need research, but we desperately need people to see someone suffering this illness, to show compassion, not contempt. At Emma's funeral, Dr. Jacco was sharing stories of Emma when she was in his care. He said how Emma had been the most challenging patient he'd ever encountered, and how he felt that the lessons from her story could be used to inform the changes needed to the system. This is what we're now focused on. We need your support to make Emma's legacy a reality. Emma was a force of nature, and we now owe it to the others to apply the lessons of Emma's story to meeting the great challenges presented by this vicious, destructive and deadly illness.